With last week's announcements for SMC and the parent resident visa coming back, there have been a number of questions asked a number of times, as well as some changes announced from Immigration New Zealand. Now, there is also one or two things which Immigration New Zealand seems aren't so sure about and could end tripping people up. So we're going to do a quick video today just covering some of those questions. We do expect to get more information from Immigration New Zealand in the coming week, which will come out to you, but this will hopefully answer at least some of your questions you may currently have. As always, this video is not legal advice, it's just our commentary on immigration here in New Zealand. If you're looking for legal advice, get in contact with us in the description down below. You'll find our contact details. Now let's start with SMC. As this is the next draw that is restarting and one that probably most of you are interested in. I've also put up a little article on our website for how the SMC process generally works. We'll link to that in the description down below. Question number 1, do you need IELTS for the EOI? And the answer here is mixed. For those of you who have a qualification or something else that allows you to show your English, then you can ignore this question. For those of you who do need to provide an English test, then the question is going to be whether it's required to be provided with the EOI or whether it's with the application itself. That does follow on later. Now, our interpretation as the rules are written is that IELTS is not required for the EOI. However, some people in Immigration New Zealand do disagree with us on that. One team actually has agreed with us that the rules are clear and it's not required, where another team has said to us, actually, no, it is required. So, historically, it has been a requirement for the EOI, but with a couple of years sort of this not taking place, we've gone back and looked at the rules and we've taken an approach. Well, we believe that the rules state that it's not required. So we are definitely being cautious, though, in that the team in immigration that think it is required may be the ones that actually are going to be followed. So at least for our clients, we're sort of going on the approach of if you can get an IELTS done prior to the EOI, then definitely get that done. That's what our advice to our clients are. But there is going to be possibly those who cannot get it, because we can expect that the IELTS providers will be swamped at the moment with everyone wanting to try and get these tests done before 9 November. There is one thing we can confirm right now. We are trying to wait for confirmation from immigration as to which way they're actually going to fall. We have given them our point of view, and we're sort of waiting to get confirmation from them. We do expect to get some more policy next week. One thing they have said to us is in relation to those of you who may have an application in the pool already and had an IELTS that was valid at the time, but the IELTS has since expired. They have told us that with the IELTS sitting in the pool that have expired, the state of play will be to take a facilitative approach and accept the expired test that is sitting in the EOI pool, issue an ITA, and then an application expect a current IELTS to have been met. So provide a new IELTS with the application itself. Now, they mentioned at the end there as to other issues, as other questions we have them, which they're still trying to sort out a policy on, and we'll come back to you with those once they have responded. Question 2, the rules state that $27 per hour is the required minimum pay for roles that are skill level 1 to 3. Is that still the case? Well, that was the case, and it is still the case when you look at the operational manual that is available online. However, 2 days ago we did get through an amendment circular that makes a change to that. Now, this was Amendment Circular number 202258. This is available online through the Immigration New Zealand website. And this states right here that the occupation where it's 1 till 3, it's now $27.76 per hour, and for 4 and 5 it is $64 per hour, being 1.5 times the median wage. So that has now changed to be in line with the other visas and the requirements under the operational manual. We were hoping it wouldn't come through, but it has come through. So you'll have to have that payment in place, or at least that offer in place for a job with that pay to meet the criteria for SMC. It also does change the bonus pay for high remuneration up to $55.52 per hour, being double the $27.76, and the same change, the same operational manual change, also does the points to 180 after 9 November. So 160 points up until on or before 9 November, that final draw. provided that the EOI was submitted after 20th of August 2017, which is going to be the case, I think, for all of you. Be surprised if it wasn't. And then 180 points for draws after 9 November, the next draw being in January, be every third Thursday of the month. Question number 3. Oh, one last thing actually there. We expect it to be changed to 29.66 on 23 February 2023, being the median wage that's coming into effect there. We expect this will be changed along with the other visas. So that will be the new requirement come the end of February. So probably the draw in March will be looking at that 29.66 as the median wage then. Question number 3, and I get a lot of these. Can I get SMC with, and then just probably with some basic details. Now, eligibility is not an easy thing to assess. It can often be easy to say who can't get it, but it does take more time to work out whether someone is eligible to actually get skilled migrant or to apply for skilled migrant. Especially when you start looking at the ANSCO roles description and see whether you fit within that, whether that your job fits within that, whether you meet the requirements of it to have that role, whether your experience falls under that and you have experience to do those qualifications. It is sort of a larger piece of work. There are some which people will have issues with. The most notable are those who are looking at retail managers or cafe restaurant managers. If it is part of a larger company or a franchise, then it's often going to be difficult for you to get SMC with those roles. There's a lot of established case law on that. There are some exceptions, but generally retail manager and cafe restaurant manager, if you are part of a larger company or a chain or a franchise system, you will most likely have difficulties, and I think definitely get advice prior to making an application with a role in one of those areas, because you possibly will be wasting your money and your time, and should be looking at other options. So unless you are certain that you are going to be fine with that, definitely might be worth getting some legal advice on that to see whether you are going to be eligible. And it does require more than just a couple of points. There's a lot more information to be processed. Question number 4, will applications now go ahead of those who applied in 2020, or will they go after those who are already in the queue? Now, by default, SMC applications are done in order of application date. So applications that come now after an EOI being drawn will enter the queue after those who have already applied previously, 2020, 2019, that are still getting processed. The exception is going to be that the applicants who have jobs that require registration, like lawyers, teachers, electricians, that sort of thing, and those who earn at least twice the median salary, because they will be given priority and will jump ahead of applications that are already in the queue. So generally, if you make an application now, you will enter the queue after those who are already in there, except for those who do have that priority based on their job or on their pay level. Question 5, I have an RV21, a Residence Visa 2021 application being processed. Would SMC be faster? And I've been asked this a number of times. People who, I suppose, are getting impatient with the RV21 process and think the SMC is going to be faster. Now, remember that SMC prior to lockdown taking place was taking years to process. Now, while we're not going to look at that again, or that issue coming again, because that was caused by a restriction on the number of visas that immigration could offer, and that restriction has now been removed for SMC. SMC is still a longer visa to process. It's more intensive than the RV21. The other thing to note is that, of course, the biggest delay with RV21 is that New Zealand police certificate check, which is taking sort of around 4 months on average for most applicants. We did see a jump. We were seeing sort of ones from went to gathering information in May coming through in the last few weeks. We're now seeing ones that went to gathering information in July now coming through. June seems to basically there was no applications made to the police certificate, to the police in that June month. So there has been a jump there, but we are still seeing applications in July for police certificates, which was 3 months ago, and now coming through 3.5 months ago. So that is the biggest delay. And if you go for an SMC, that will also require a New Zealand police certificate, and that will then also go through the same process, unless, of course, you've already had one come through. So there really is little advantage, if any, of going to SMC over RV21. Now, those who could get priority through SMC, who have a job that requires registration, in very small, limited circumstances, there may be a small time advantage in going to SMC over RV21, but that would be in the most extreme circumstances, with everything lining up properly, and it'd be an extremely rare situation. So for the vast majority, SMC is not going to be a faster approach for you than RV21. Now, if you have concerns about your RV21 application, there's some reason you think you may not get it, then you may want to consider SMC. Definitely get advice on that. But otherwise, for most people, I think RV21 will be much, much faster. Now, looking at the parent category questions. Question 1, will updating my EOI mean it falls down the list? Now, the Minister wasn't clear on this. We personally don't believe it should impact. The order should be done on the date that the EOI is submitted, and I think updating an EOI shouldn't be seen as being a new submission. It's just an update to an old submission. We have asked Immigration for a comment on this to clarify, and they've let us know that the new policy will be released next week. And at that point, this should become clear as to how their interpretation is going to be around that. So you may want to hold off on updating the EOI just now, just in case. We would be surprised if they did take that approach, then an update was a new submission, because that would make a lot of mayhem. And if that's the case, we'll definitely be raising a few complaints about it. But they will come back to us next week. They have assured us as to what that rules are going to be and the policies around that. Question 2, I'm already in the pool, so when will I be drawn? And this is a big question, and one that is hard to answer from the information currently available. We do have some estimates at hand. We're going to show you based on figures that we have been provided. Well, actually, someone on online, thank you, Anna, for pointing those out. And also thank you to some other people as well. We know that the INZ has been allowed to grant 2,000 visas per year for those who are already in the pool, have an EOI in the pool. Now, as there are 4 draws per year, a draw every 3 months, we're looking at about 500 people, applicants being drawn in every pool. That's sort of a rough estimate on how we expect it to be handled. We have here the number of applicants that were added to the pool per month and remained in the pool as of June 2018. So the figures are a bit older, but we do expect these figures to be probably fairly close to what the figures currently are. We do know there's about 9,000 in the pool at the moment as of last week. So with these figures here showing 5,939 as of June 2018, we could pick probably another 3,000 since then with the applications being closed. So we're probably going to be pretty close to these numbers being correct. Now these numbers do go back to July 2020. So a number of these will probably be withdrawn or no longer be valid. But we are just looking at a few numbers here to try and give an idea as to when people may be drawn based on what these numbers are. We are hoping to get some updated numbers by month to be able to do some better sums on. But at least will give us a starting point for now. So if we look at these numbers, we've just sort of done the applications, the total applications, the visas. So here 1 application, 2 visas, so 2 applicants in that application. And the total of those visas going down and then sort of summing them up as we go. Now, looking if we had 500 in the first draw, that would mean that that draw November 22 would have 500 of these 793. So we'll be looking at going back to applications made November 15th or earlier. The February draw, looking at December 15th or earlier, that's about 1,053 applicants had applied by that point and still in the pool as at June 2018. And then again, 1,500 around May next year is when we hit the next 500 allowance, which is January 16. We're going back to the August draw, back to March 2016, April 2016, for the November draw. So you can sort of see that there is this large number. There was a number of applications made during late 2015 through 2016, and of course when the pool was stopped. So this is where we're going to be seeing a large number of people in the pool still in there, which are going to be drawn over the next several years. So we're looking here, if all those ones are still in there, we don't think they're going to be, but if they are all still in there, we're looking at February 2025, we'll be up to October 2016. So that's probably some harrowing numbers there for some of you. Now we did also look at just As I said, these are old numbers, so on an assumption, and also these were numbers of applications that were made prior to the large increase in the salary requirements. So we did look at say if we took this number and just put at 50%. So say half of these are going to be withdrawn. Very rough numbers. We have no indication as to what the numbers are going to be. But it would sort of push things back a bit. So that 500 would then be through to December 2015. In February, we'll be done in March 2016. By the end of next year, we're looking at October 2016. So it does move along a bit, but we're still looking quite far back as what those applications are being drawn from. So if you were in the pool back in 2015, 2016, then you could possibly look at maybe being drawn next year. After that, you could be looking further afield. Again, this is based on old numbers. We are going to try to get new numbers to update this, but it does give you an idea, hopefully, of how long it might take to actually be drawn with just 2,000 applicants being handled every single year. We will provide an update of this once we get the new numbers. We'll do it in a future video, but just for now, this is the numbers that we do have at hand. Now, question number 3, how can the parent remain in New Zealand while they're waiting to go through this list? And this is an issue that we raised last week as soon as we saw this being announced, with 9,000 in the queue and 2,000 being granted a year. The average person is looking at several years before they even get a chance to get drawn and processed, their application actually getting made. This would be several years where they were either need to be in New Zealand on a visa of some type or be outside New Zealand. Now, unfortunately, in regards to visitor visas, there is no visitor visa that will allow a parent or grandparent to remain in New Zealand for 2 years at a time. There is a 9-month and 18-month rule where you have a maximum of 9 months in the country in every 18-month period. So 2 years is going to be going over that allowance. There was a break of that rule during COVID with the border being closed. There were some allowances there, but we are now back into that 9 and 18-month rule situation when, unless you were applying for this visa some substantially number of years ago, you're not going to be able to stay in New Zealand on a visitor visa while you wait for this draw to take place. Now, so for parents or particularly grandparents who may be unable to live alone, this creates an issue. They may have been in the country for a number of years. They came here when they were fairly active, but through COVID, several years on, they may now be reliant on that support of their family. It may not be a financial cost to the family, maybe not medical cost, but just as they get older, people sort of become reliant on family to support them and help them in their everyday lives. And unfortunately, there is no visa available to help in that situation. But of course, neither is going home a help back to another country an option unless there's somebody back there who can support them in that situation. So there really is no real easy answer there for that situation. Now, if this is your situation, please get in contact with us, as while there may not be a visa, there may be other options available to you or to your parent or your grandparent. We think there should be a visa to allow people to stay in the country while this visa is being processed and while they're waiting for this queue. That does seem to be the more, fair approach. They've been waiting for 6 years for this to reopen, and it was announced to reopen in start of 2020, so 2 years ago, and again it was delayed. So we think it should be fair to perhaps provide an option to migrants. At the moment, there is no option there to stay in the country. So if that is you or your parent or your grandparent, and they cannot support themselves on their own back home and have no support there, let us know. You can contact with us directly, email us, and we'll see if we can provide another solution based on your situation. Some there may be options open to them in other pathways. For others, it may not be an option, but at least we can sort of provide that clarity to you. And that is it for today's video. We are waiting for more clarification from INZ on several of the questions, and we'll try and get a video out next week to cover those once those policies do come through. If we can assist with either visa, please get in contact with us by emailing advice@shlaw.co.nz in the description down below as well. And please share this video to help others and hopefully get the information out to them that this may be of use to them. Until next time, sometime next week, kia kaha, stay safe.